Greetings, everybody. Thank you for joining another Understanding the Young Child free parenting workshop. I missed you guys in August. We had a death in the St. John community, and we had to postpone our live. So we are going live now, and we're going to continue the topic of discussion, which is adverse childhood experiences, called ACEs. The CDC and the Kaiser Permanente did a study, and this study is looking at adults in their lives and the diseases that they have and how their childhood adversities impacts their adult life. So let's get started and go rolling. We are on live on YouTube and live on Facebook. So those of you who are tuning in, get ready because we're getting ready to start. We're going to be looking at emotional and social development and how that is an impact on children in terms of early childhood. So we're looking at early childhood, and we're looking at building social and emotional skills at home. And in classrooms, school classrooms are busy places where young children learn all sorts of things, including social emotional skills, such as how to express feelings and how to work together with friends on a project. Here are some suggestions for helping your child develop social and emotional skills at home. NACE is the National Association for the Education of Young Children, and they are basically the ones who accredit child development centers. They're having an annual conference in Washington, D.C. My research was selected to present at the conference on family engagement in children's schooling. So, when we're looking at this topic of building social and emotional skills at home, in terms of preventing adverse childhood experiences, we need to look at literacy development. Literacy development, looking at literature and books for young children. One of the suggestions is puppets. Teachers sometimes talk with children about conflicts and help them think about solutions while using puppets, and families can try this technique at home. So puppets are a great way to introduce children to feeling words like happy, sad, angry, and children will sometimes talk to puppets about their feelings. Puppets can also help in discussions about challenging topics like getting to bed on time. So this is one example of engaging your children at home for emotional, social, and emotional development. Now, when we're looking at adverse childhood experiences, we're looking at children in childhood being exposed to poverty, violence, abuse, sexual molestation, all the different negatives that happen with children when they're growing up. Yep, that's respect. He wants to chime in, being chatty patty. So when we're looking at adverse childhood experiences, we're basically looking at these different negatives that impact children when they are young. When children are little, they're in from birth to 3 years old is the most impactful time, it's a critical period. So if you don't expose children at that time to books, to reading, to writing, to literacy, they're not, it's going to be hard to get them involved in that, and they're going to fall behind in school. Stop. He's agreeing with me. So, what we look at is trying to combat children's adverse experiences when they are that age, from birth to 3 years old. That's the most critical period and critical time. Okay, just a minute. Okay, he wants to be on. He wants to be on the live. This is him here. Respect. He wants to be on there. So, when we're talking about adverse childhood experiences, we want to be able to know what the data is saying, what the research says, and try to have prevention mechanisms in place to help children in these adverse situations. So instead of arguing with um, parents are arguing in front of the children, it is not a good thing to do because that's an adverse experience. When children are subjected to stressful situations, the cortisol level increases. And when cortisol level increases, it impacts the body and it gives the body a response technique that is okay, fight or flight, and the cortisol level releases inside of the body, causing illnesses. Okay, so when adults are suffering with high blood pressure, when they're suffering with diabetes or even depression and anxiety, this stems from childhood. It stems from the interaction that adults have with children that are adverse. Okay, so it's important. We always say sometimes babies don't know what they're seeing, or they don't know what they you can't read to a baby because they don't understand. That's a big fat lie. Okay, I don't like to use the word fat, excuse me for that word, but that's a bold lie. Babies brains are developing, and with this research on brain development, it's important to read every day to the baby. This gives the baby language. It gives them the opportunity to hear sounds and learn how the mouth is moving when the sounds and words are being said. So it's important to include reading for infants. Instead of going out and buying toys that the infant is going to engage in for a moment, buy books. There are a wonderful selection of books that you can purchase for infants. Okay. So let's talk now quickly about another way that you can engage with your child at home is called think aloud. And think aloud when your child hears your thinking process. So whatever you're doing, if you're changing the baby, you want to say it out loud. Oh, I'm changing your diaper, and look, talk and have conversations with the baby. When you do that, you're building vocabulary and you're allowing the child to listen to words and hear words when you're saying them. So, when your child hears your thinking process, it helps her or him understand how to cope with frustration and solve problems. So, whoops, my favorite shopping bag has a hole in it. I better take another one with me to the grocery store. So, you're having conversations out loud and giving the child vocabulary and an ability to hear language. Language development is all part of intellectual development. I talk about the pies. The pies are physical, intellectual, emotional, and social development. These four domains are what and how children are developing in their lives from before birth all the way to beyond um, their lives. So, the other strategy I'm going to give you all is reading bedtime stories. There is something magical about this end of the day routine that makes it the ideal time for talking about feelings. So when you are, and this is reference, my reference for this information is, like I said earlier, the National Association for the Education of Young Children. And this is where this information is coming from. So you want to discuss the characters and events in the story. Invite your child to share her thoughts and feelings by asking questions. What do you think he should do? How do you think she feels? What would you do if you were this character? So when you're reading bedtime stories to your children, your child, it's important to have discussions about the characters and about the events in the story. Another example of an activity you can do to develop social and emotional development in young children is do a job together. Instead of asking your child to do a chore alone, do it with her. I've heard this many times. I've heard parents go wash up the dishes, go take out the garbage, go do this, go do that. But you need to do it with the child together. The two of you might fold laundry together, set the table, rake up some leaves, or paint a wall. Help your child join in by shortening the handle of a broom to make it child size, or providing a small paintbrush or roller. So this is one example that you can increase the social and emotional development of your children by doing a job together. Okay, playing games, card and board games. I love me some backgammon. Any backgammon players out there? Holla, holla. So playing board games and outdoor games such as tag or hopscotch offer built-in opportunities for helping children learn to take turns, cooperate, handle frustration, and more. While playing games together, focus on fun ideas, um, instead of winning or losing. So it's not about the competition, like who wins or who loses. It's about the process, enjoying the process. So these are examples of how you can increase social and emotional development in young children. And I see we have some folks on Facebook that came into the live. We're already 10 minutes in. Want to say thank you guys for joining this live. You can go back into my YouTube page and actually look at this again. And if you have questions, you can always send me an email. I will leave it in the link below, and you can send me that any questions you may have. Okay, let's continue on to helping your preschooler gain self control. Those of you who follow me and know of me, you know that the Virgin Islands, St. John specifically, we have no public preschool, we have no public library, and we have no public high school. These are three important places of learning for children that is lacking within the island of St. John. St. John is a district combined with St. Thomas. So it's a St. Thomas, St. John district. They look at it as one district. However, St. John doesn't get the same services as St. Thomas. So there's a inequity happening, and there's a disparity when it comes to services for children, specifically early childhood education. So that is the void that needs to be filled. And I took time out to do these free workshops, understanding the young child. We do these free workshops on the 20th of the month, every 20th of the month. Today is September 20th, so we're here again this month with our same topic of adverse childhood experiences and looking at social and emotional development. In reference that we're using is the National Association for the Education of Young Children. Now, when we're looking at preschool gaining self control, we look at school readiness skills. Many teachers say that children who succeed in kindergarten should know when and how to control their impulses. Okay, they can follow through when the task is difficult and listen to directions for a few minutes. Now, these skills are linked to self control. Children can develop them at preschool and at home. So, here are a few ways that families can help children learn self-control. So let's look at this, and I'm trying to share my screen so you can see what I'm doing, but it looks like it's not allowing me to this time. So that's okay, because we can continue on with this topic real quick here and looking at gaining self-control. So what can you do? Here are a few things. This is one example. Change the rules of a game to make it an opposite game. For example, instead of playing the familiar version of Simon Says, play Simon Doesn't Say. Explain the new rule in words and actions. Do the opposite of what Simon asked you to do. If Simon says touch your head, you should touch your toes. Be sure to demonstrate how this works. So you keep direction simple, take turns being Simon. This is one way of helping your child to gain that self control as a preschooler. We're looking at 4 or 5 year olds. Okay. Another example of something you can do at home with your child is finish what you are doing, then respond to requests for attention. So, for example, if you're on the phone and your child asks for something and it's not an emergency, let her know you need to take time to complete your conversation. This is a good way to let your child practice waiting for a short time. Okay. Using good manner words to your children helps them to learn the good manner words. Thank you, saying hi when you reach home or when you enter a space where other people are at. Learning to use your good manner words and learning to say, a greeting or whatever you say, hola or whatever to people, and listening and having that respect. So when parents do that, you're going to see children do that. They're going to get into a house and say hi, good afternoon, or greetings or good morning. They're going to say something is going to be said. Now in some cultures, good manner words are not important. So if you're from a culture where you don't say please and you don't say thank you, you don't, greet people, you don't open your mouth and speak to people, that's maybe something culturally that's happening, that's why you don't have good manner words. So but I always like to say you are going to create your destiny by your behavior. So when you have behaviors that are positive, that are respectful, your destiny is going to end up positive and respectful because your behavior ultimately creates your destiny. So here's another activity you can do at home. It's called do activities together that require following directions. So, for example, put together a model, play follow the leader, or bake or cook. I'm going to read the recipe aloud. Listen carefully so we will both know what to do. I'll read them again as we do each step. So, when you're using language and you're instructing and giving directions, you're using words like listen carefully so we will both know what to do. You're using words like I'll read them again so we do each step. So this is building language. So when I look at the pies, I'm looking at physical development, intellectual development, emotional and social development. However, they're all linked to each other and they're all interacting in some way or another. So, physical activities may be you may be tapping into intellectual development by doing a game or a pattern game that is giving the child that support intellectually. Okay, whether it's math, it's patterns, it's numbers, it's um, spatial recognition, etc. Anything dealing with the mind and the intellectual development and perceptual development is inclusive of this, as well as cognitive development and awareness. So when we're looking at the pies, we're looking at them all interacting on each other simultaneously. Okay. So here's another activity. This one is helping children understand how long they will have to wait for something and suggest activities to do while they wait. So you say to your child, Grammy and Grampy are coming over before dinner. Would you like to draw some pictures to give them? Or as soon as I put your sister to bed, I will read you some stories. You can choose 3 books for us to read together. So you're giving them an activity to do while you are doing something else at home. Okay. It's important to keep children engaged especially when you have more than one child in your home that you're engaging. It's important that you use language like this. If you're on the phone or if you are having friends come over, you want to let them know, me and Grampy are coming over before dinner. Let's draw some pictures. So while you're preparing dinner for Grammy and Grampy, The children can be drawing pictures and doing art and getting ready for that event. Another activity you can do is work with your child to complete a puzzle that has a few more pieces than he or she is used to. So set up the puzzle in a place where you can work on it for several days if needed. Okay, you might finish it in one day or 2 days. So celebrate together when one of you puts the last piece in place. This is so important because of the emotional development and the emotional support that you're showing to your child is going to reflect in their behavior. All right, so let's see if we have one more suggestion for activity. This is one of my favorites. It's a plant some easy to grow marigold seeds in a pot or in a garden. It can be any seeds. The suggestion that the reference I'm using is suggesting is marigold seeds. Okay. So check together every day until the plants pop up. Over time, watch the plants grow leaves and flowers. Gardening is another activity that develops social and emotional development in young children because it and intellectual development because you can count the seeds, to increase their cognitive awareness of numbers. And the emotional and social development piece or slice of the pie, I like to call it, is allowing them to take something out of nothing and create and see it actually growing. So, socially, they're interacting in terms of language development, and their vocabulary is expanding because you have to use a lot of gardening words, and their sense of space and their sense of proximity to themselves and a plant or a garden, that relationship needs to be built from the beginning. So I always tell parents, when you have a baby, plant a tree, whether it's a fruit tree, whatever it is, you need to plant something. I was listening to something the other day, and a parent said that her son planted an avocado pit when he was like 10 years old or something like that. Now he's a teenager, and the avocado tree is humongous, and he's got all these avocados growing that he could sell now and have some pocket change. So, and that's something free in terms of a tree with produce on it that he planted. So these types of activities are important for children in terms of their emotional and social development, as well as their overall physical and intellectual development. Okay. All right, we're going to end our live now. If you have questions, like I said, shoot me an email at Dr. Carla M. Sewer at neguseducation.com. It's Negus education.com. Dr. Carla, Carla, initial M, and then Sewer at neguseducation.com. And I will put that in the Facebook chat. I have a parent that says we love doing family puzzles. Thank you, Miss Raquel Toussaint. I enjoyed my Maya so much this summer and her love for engaging in art and reading. So thank you for having her and sharing her with us this summer. Doing family puzzles is a great way to incorporate all the developmental domains. Physical development, you got the child using their fine motor skills, okay? Intellectual development, you have the child using their cognitive skills to look at which puzzle piece fits where. Then you have that emotional and social development piece where the child is engaging in puzzles. I just love puzzles. My dad is in his 70s and he loves doing puzzles, keeps your mind sharp. I like to see everybody engaging with their children at home. So these are just a few ideas and suggestions that you can do with your child at home to develop their emotional and social development as early childhood learners. Okay, I know we kind of went off into this topic and the ACEs study, the adverse childhood experiences, that I mentioned earlier. When we're looking at that study, we have to look at ways to support children's experiences when they're in their early childhood and beyond. So, the adverse childhood experiences study, one way to prevent the adversity is these activities that I'm sharing with the families now that you can do at home. And we have to remember that it's important when we're looking at children ages 3 to 6, and the looking at providing an understanding of the causes and effects of trauma on young children, and why educator relationships with children and families promote healing and more. So, this piece in terms of trauma and young children experiencing trauma, and trauma can be divorce when parents are divorced. Trauma can be moving to a new home when parents are changing jobs. That could be traumatic for children. So when we're looking at um, that piece in terms of trauma, we want to. I always like to reference NACE, the National Association for the Education of Young Children, and there's some authors who wrote a book called Trauma and Young Children, Teaching Strategies to Support and Empower. And the little, this little piece is talking about the world can be a confusing, frightening place to young children. More than ever now, early childhood educators need accurate information and practical guidance for helping children families who have experienced trauma. So, following a healing centered approach to work with children ages 3 to 6, this book provides an understanding of what trauma is, what causes it, and its potential effects on the brain and learning, why your relationships with children and families are critical to promoting healing, and how to create trauma informed programs and implement practices that support children and families, and then how to care for your own well being. Look, everybody, as parents, we have to take care of ourselves too. We have to be able to have that me time. We have to be able to take care of our own well being so that we can be strong families and parents for our children. So, the thread of hope woven throughout will encourage you as you help children and families find a path forward, not only to strive, but also to flourish. So, this is one book I suggest. It's called Trauma and Young Children, Teaching Strategies to Support and Empower. It's by Sarah Erdman, Laura J. Colker, and Elizabeth C. Winter. And you can send me an email. Let me know if you want access to the information, because I could do a workshop. My next topic could be trauma and young children and the teaching strategies we need to use to support and empower. So if you have suggestions for topics for next month, send them to me. If there's a topic that you want me to discuss next month, October 20th, we'll be meeting again for our live Understanding the Young Child free parenting session. So thanks so much, everybody, for tuning in, and thank you for sharing your children with me. And I appreciate all of you for your support and your encouragement as I build Future is Here, a child development center on St. John. Thank you, everybody, and do have a blessed evening.